Paranormal Road has been brought to you by EVP Mediums. Visit us at evpmediums.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And she looks out and sees these lights in the sky and these different patterns drifting like they were going to land.
Examining the depths of human perception.
I remember when I was awake and I realized I was awake, I started to sort of scan the room and I realized that something was wrong.
Electronics started acting up, ceased to work, overheated.
And so when we get around this bend in the road and this group of trees, we look up in the sky and there's this craft, and it is huge.
I've never seen anything like this, and instantly I could feel the fear.
You've just turned on the Paranormal Road. I'm Dave Hensley, your host.
And I'm Randy Kessler, your co-host.
It's been an awesome second season, Randy.
It has. It seems like it flew by, and we met some really incredible people along the way.
Yeah, that's what I like about doing Paranormal Road the best. We do plan on doing some bonus episodes during the off season. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. We have a couple things planned. It would be kind of nice to share that with you, our listening audience.
And just keep an eye on our Facebook page. We'll be posting stuff throughout. A lot of you know already that we have a summer campsite we go to. Hopefully with all this virus interruption, it won't hold us up too long.
Yeah, I'm ready to partay for the summer. It's you work all winter, you know, bust your ass, and all you do is dream about, you know, being back with all your friends and family at the campground and then this stuff. But I'm going to stop my whining and complaining.
We'll get through it.
Yep, we'll get through it. We're an awesome nation, and I believe we will get through this. Tonight, we have our last Haddocks report of the season. That'll be coming up. And we have guests tonight from Brunswick Area Paranormal Society, another paranormal research team. Randy?
So far, we've watched some of their videos, and they're pretty cool guys. We also listened to their podcast, which is an up-and-coming. It's really interesting. These guys are kind of cool to listen to.
Yeah, so if you're into the ghosties, you definitely want to stay tuned for this show. Also, we'd like to talk a little bit about EVP Mediums. For those of you who have not checked out our YouTube channel, you can find our paranormal research, our group, and things that we have done. And there's quite a few. We're up to approaching 80 investigations now. Some of them are an hour in length, but the information, or I believe what we capture, is truly inspiring and pretty amazing. So make sure you check out evpmediums.com or our YouTube channel, EVP Mediums.
It also makes it interesting when we interview and talk with other paranormal groups and get their take on things and share a little bit about our experiences and their experiences. So I'm kind of excited about tonight.
Yeah, it should be a good show. So with trying not to risk the danger of me rambling, I think it's time to get on with the show. And we start off with a Haddocks report.
And now, professional UFO investigator on special assignment with Paranormal Road, it's William Haddocks with The Haddocks Report.
This is William Haddocks with The Haddocks Report, and I've got a few interesting cases to bring to you this week, being that this is the final episode of the season, I thought I would bring out the most three recent cases that I have. And ironically, they were all within a couple days of each other. But they were a lot of fun to figure out. A couple of them gave me a bit of a challenge. The first was from Hubbard, Ohio, which is the northern part of the state over toward the Pennsylvania line. And the witness was looking south around 10 o'clock in the evening on the 4th of April. Now, if you go to my website, which is Central Ohio UFO Reporting Center.us, and click the images tab, you'll be able to see the videos that correspond with a couple of these cases. But the witness was looking south in the sky around 10 o'clock, and they were reddish orange orbs, is what it appeared in the video. But it looked like the camera was having trouble focusing on the lights. So, looking at the flight radar, which is one of the first things I generally look at, I was able to find both aircraft. They were bombardier jets, small planes. Numerous companies use them to take you from one airport to the next. American Airlines ended up being one of them. Sort of a commercial version of some private jets, like the Learjet. Looks similar in shape. And I made a small video that I had sent to the witness as well to prove what it was. Because in the video, one object actually disappeared, and in reality, it landed. Now, the two objects looked to be within just a few inches of each other up in the sky. But one was about 6,000 feet, and the other was 32,000 feet. So inches can be a huge distance in actual footage up in the sky. But each aircraft had a distinct red light on the bottom of the aircraft, and that is what the witness was seeing. That was pretty fun to figure out. I had one that came in from the northern part of the state as well, up around an area called Avon Lake. White object, very bright, seeing it for over a 2-week period for a distinct amount of time in the evening. Ended up being something that numerous UFO investigators and witnesses alike have chased for decades, Venus. But the one that I had the most fun with, and was actually a little bit of a challenge, was from Chillicothe, Ohio, which is not far from me, maybe 25 miles or so. And it was, again, a white orb-shaped object moving erratically in the sky. Witness was seeing it for 6 to 7 minutes before it disappeared. So I checked the flight radars and things initially, and there was nothing. Nothing in the area. So I was a little bit stumped, so I used a few other tools that I have. One being Stellarium. I can set up the night sky anywhere in the world for any time that I choose, and it will show me everything, whether it was satellites, planets, stars, which ones twinkle, which ones don't, etc. And ended up being an artificial satellite that I was able to track through the sky, the exact place she looked, the exact amount of time. So that was pretty fun. So video for all of that is also on the website, again, which is Central Ohio UFO Reporting Center.us. So those were the three most recent cases that I have had come in. Now, as I had mentioned in the beginning, this is the final episode for the season. We'll be back again in the fall. But that does not mean the reporting center is closed. Anytime, day, night, whenever you happen to see an object that you cannot explain, regardless of what it is, if you even have some ideas but are not sure, go to the website and you can click the link at the top to fill out a report. And I like the reports to be filled out in that manner because it keeps your personal information separate from the actual description of what you saw. Because I like to put witness descriptions on the website. But number one priority for me above all else is confidentiality. Your names and exact locations and things will never be published. And as always, within 24 hours, I will respond. Now, it may take me a while to get an answer sometimes, and not all cases are solvable. But I will respond within 24 hours. That's been a goal of mine from the start, and I've always been able to keep that. So, over the summer, as you're out, I know a lot of craziness is going on in the world. A lot of people are stuck at home right now. So if you have an opportunity, go outside and, look around in the sky. You might be surprised what you could see flying overhead. But the more information, the better. When you submit a report, I know a lot of info can be very hard to figure out, like height and speed and things, but mainly location and time. That's the main thing. And direction is very crucial as well. I know people get things mixed up sometimes, north, south, east, west. It can get confusing. So if you have any doubts, then just let me know something that's in that area, and then I can look it up on the maps and find out exactly, where the object was seen. So, again, like I said, I appreciate all the support from everybody. If you need to contact me at any time for anything other than a report, you can do so through the website. There's a contact form on the home page. You can get a hold of Paranormal Road on Facebook, and you can also follow me on Facebook at Central Ohio UFO Reporting Center. The link is at the bottom of the homepage, as well as the YouTube channel, where I upload the podcast and anything else that I'm involved with. I put everything there. And slowly over time, I put everything also onto the Facebook page. I copy it over there as well. So again, hope everybody stays safe and makes it through all of this crazy times we're dealing with. And as always, keep looking up.
And thanks, William, for that Haddix report. Now we're going to take a short break, but when we return, we're going to be talking to Chris and Tyler from Brunswick Area Paranormal Society.
Dying tree fantasy, come talk to me. How did you get this way? I never thought I'd see the day. I tried so hard to bring you back. You're not Jesus Christ. You're not Jesus Christ. You're not Jesus Christ. I'm just gonna say it, say it. This isn't what we wanted. We never thought that it would come to this. And I'm just gonna say it, say it. You never really knew me. Stop pretending that you wanted to. Well, I'm just a man, flesh and blood. All I need is real love. Your ticket price is too damn high. I don't play with guns, 'cause bullet holes still remain. That don't mean I've changed. Bullet holes still remain. That don't mean I've changed. That don't mean I've changed. That don't mean I've changed. I'm just gonna say it, say it. This isn't what we wanted. We never thought that it would come to this. And I'm just gonna say it, say it. You never really knew me. Stop pretending that you wanted to. You got your gold streets ahead of you. used to think that you were right in this, but maybe you were wrong. I'm just gonna say it, I'll say it. This isn't what we wanted, we never thought that it would come to this. And I'm just gonna say it, I'll say it. Oh, you never really knew me, stop pretending that you wanted to.
And welcome back to the Paranormal Road. On the line, as we talked about earlier, we have our guests, Chris and Tyler. Chris, welcome, and Tyler, welcome to the Paranormal Road.
Thank you very much. I think that.
We're kind of excited. We went and looked up some of your stuff and your investigations, and we like the fact that we have another team that's local here in Ohio that we can kind of bounce things off of and listen to your side of the stories. And we want to know a little bit about you guys. We don't really know a whole lot about you.
Yeah, so tell us, let's start right from the beginning. Tell us how you guys got started into this line of work.
Well, why don't you start with that, Chris? Because the group as it is now was definitely started by Chris. I had some investigative experience. I'm Tyler, just so you guys can get the boys' match. But I had some experience in the past and everything. I'm a little younger than he is, so he's definitely led the way on certain things with the group. So I'll let him, talk about the starting of it.
Okay.
Do you want me my beginnings of why I started the page, or do you want me to go back why I interest in the paranormal field?
Well, yeah, I'd say, what do you think were factors in your life that led you to getting into paranormal research?
Okay, that makes sense. About 15, 20 years ago, and then you know how urban exploration ties into the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
So every locations I go to, or creepy locations, because I'm originally from Indiana. I've been in Ohio for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So most of my creepy beginnings were in Indiana, because there's a lot. Everyone has those legends in every state. So every location we've been into, either I always had a sense of someone following me, or unexplained noises, or disembodied breaths. They're always around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept getting more interested. And I really didn't put it onto page. The Brunswick Area Paranormal Studies page I started on Facebook is going to be almost 3 years old in July. And I wanted to share.
Nice.
How long have you said you've had your Facebook page for 3 years? Is that when you, I guess you'd say, formally started the group?
Yeah, that's when I formally started the group. Actually started, which she is still part of the team, Erica Franklin. She can't be here right now. Mm-hmm. She's pretty sensitive, and those seem to attach to her a lot more when we go into the location.
Now, do you guys mainly focus on commercial properties, outdoor? I saw you have a lot of outdoor locations, such as the bridge, which I do want to talk about that a little bit later. But or do you also do residential to try to help families or people?
Well, we've tried to reach out more to families and people, and we've had a couple of leads on a couple of investigations. We actually had one lined up before the quarantine kind of kicked in. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the easier locations for us to get out to and access have been a lot of the outdoors, which we do love the outdoors. I mean, I'm an avid hiker, so that's something I definitely enjoy. But we've tried to go to different commercial locations as well. Just unfortunately, sometimes with those, there can be some red tape in the way and costs and things like that. So it's a little bit harder sometimes.
Right.
But we've definitely made the attempt to do more investigations inside people's homes and help people, as we've gotten better, help people, either debunk something or figure out what might be going on in their house and see what steps they need to take. Sometimes it can be as simple as just a minor, change cleansing or something like that, or something, maybe more if it's something crazy.
Yeah, we kind of started out a little opposite of you guys. We had a lot more residential stuff, which kind of started with my house. That's how EVP Mediums got started, was I was experiencing all kinds of stuff here at my house.
Some crazy shit.
Yeah. And it kind of went, yeah, it kind of went from there. And then we also started doing, once we got into it and really started to get some cool stuff that sparked our interest, that we just kept going and moving with it. And we started doing some local, like, lectures at libraries. They're always looking for stuff, you know, to fill up their little social gatherings, although now we can't do that. But yeah, we did the some of the libraries, which turned out kind of cool. At first, we were like, oh my God, only 2 people showed up. We must suck. And
well, actually, no, our first lecture, it was in Overland, and it was packed.
Yeah, well, Overland, you know, that's an old crazy town. All the crazies come out just to get out of the house. But when we did Overland Library, it was like the night before we were going to do a TV show in New York. And, you know, we were really more focused on the excitement of going to be on TV. And then here we show up and the damn place filled up. We had like 100 people standing everywhere, and we didn't know what the hell to talk about. So we just kind of stood up there and bullshit our way through it. But that kind of stuff sparked people's interest into, hey, wait a minute, there's some weird shit going on at my house. Maybe it is spiritual. And then we started getting calls, and I think, what was it, a couple of years ago, we were doing like 2 or 3 investigations a month.
Yeah, it was crazy.
We were all over the place. But we do a lot of residential, and I think it's because we put it out there that we want to help, you know, the client, we want to help the spirit, and we want to educate the public. So I think people call because they really are kind of scared, but they want to know what's going on. So,
well, that leads me, what Randy just said, in the beginning, were you guys scared with paranormal activity? I mean, when you started having things happen to you that ultimately led you down this course, what were your emotional states? What phases of emotions did you go through to lead you to where you are now?
Well, and Chris touched on it a little bit with what started him off, you know, noticing the different things. And I'm sure at first, I mean, that had to be very scary at first when you're not knowing what's going on and it's just popping up like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mine started in elementary school. I've had it happen twice, but I had a sleep paralysis incident in which I heard whispers. I didn't see a shadow figure, which, you know, shadow figures can sometimes be related to that. You know, there is a medical reason for sleep paralysis and all that stuff. But with the slight whispering I heard, and it wasn't anything I could recognize, it definitely, you know, people always tend to lead towards Latin or something like that. I don't know. I was in like 5th or 6th grade at the time, but I know it was the most probably terrifying situation I've ever dealt with in any kind of paranormal, because not being able to move your body and then hearing something like that, it was definitely scary, and I was pretty young at the time. Right. And that's what got me starting to question certain things and going down my path.
How about you, Chris?
So it's like that story I referred to earlier. I'm always sensing things around me, and I mean, back then, I was a young man. I really didn't think about it. The only time as a kid that really freaked me out was a house in VA in a certain room where I have night terrors and shadows, and my mom said, "You're crazy, go back to bed." And I woke up a lot from that, and I was like, I know there was someone watching me, but I checked it off. I would scream my head off. I was a kid. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And it was only in that house as a kid. Once we moved out, it kind of stopped. And when I moved back to Indiana, then all this stuff started again. It's just very weird, but I was curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad as a parent. Trust me. You know, I'm old as dirt now. My kids are grown, but I can't tell you the number of times they'd come running out of their bedroom, Daddy, is there somebody in my closet? And I'm like, get back to bed. You know, now I feel terrible because there probably was.
Yeah, and we talk about that in our lectures with kids. When I usually talk about mediumship, and I'll tell people, you know, don't quickly judge that your kids don't see something, or that, you know, they're making up these things, because kids are very vulnerable, and easily a spirit would go to somebody vulnerable. So, you know, that kind of starts it with a lot of people. Some people, like you guys, will actually figure it out at some point and get curious and want to go further. Other people just block it their whole life until it kind of drives them crazy.
Well, then that starts to create something in your mind. And speaking on the kids thing, my daughter's almost 2 years old, and we usually try to lay her down, an hour or so, or a couple hours before we go to bed, usually around like 8:30, and that's why we do the shows. We're doing our shows at 9:30 right now. But sometimes watching the baby monitor, it can be very scary because she'll just stare at a corner for like 10, 15 minutes. She has conversations, and that's just baby babble and some of the toddler babble and stuff. But there's times where it's like the intensity in which she's staring and the way she's reacting to certain things, it definitely causes some alarm.
Yeah, kids and young children definitely are very perceptive because they haven't been tainted yet by what society is telling them is real and not real. And then you have and they're also very innocent. And then you have your pets. Animals are so in tune, it's unbelievable.
That's very true.
We
sorry, go ahead.
We kind of backing up to the, I guess you'd say, innocence. We also found out, and that's kind of what we push in what we do. We don't go out saying we're paranormal experts and everything we say is the Holy Grail, but we tell people what we've learned and figured out along the way and our assumption of things. And we did an investigation. What was that, a couple years ago? The woman out in Oberlin?
Farm of Refuge.
Yeah, we titled our video Farm of Refuge. And when we got out there, this woman was in her 80s. And being the medium on the team, I usually go in and walk through and tell everybody what's going on. And her property, she had a farm, was just covered with spirit. I mean, it was like something from a horror flick. There were so many there. And
wow.
She was such a sweet woman and very much had her wits about her. She wasn't, senile at all. And she was just happy-go-lucky and everything was cool. She wasn't afraid. She just wondered why she heard things upstairs and heard things pounding on the outside of her house and that kind of stuff. When we did it, throughout the investigation, we figured out that because of her age and being, a senior, that she had almost reverted back to the innocence of a child. And she was so spiritual and open with, ghosts and situations that it was like an open door.
She's a magnet.
And spirits just, piled into there because she was okay with it. So we kind of have figured out that spirits will more make themselves known to children and now to seniors because they're so much more at peace and they're so much more intuitive.
Relaxed, I guess, yeah.
That now it makes you wonder, at what point is this going to start happening to people? And it was pretty cool to see that. I mean, she wasn't afraid at all. She was a great woman. But, the whole children thing and innocence makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't a spirit go after someone who's innocent and willing to let them in?
Exactly.
I completely agree. As we get older, there's a lot more weight of the opinions and the ideals of all the people around us. Your parents, your peers, they put all that stuff of like what things are, what you should believe in. Oh, that's crazy. And then by the time you're in your 20s, you might have all that stripped away from you and no insight or no ability to keep your mind open to that kind of stuff.
Right. Speaking of, what you just kind of brought up, did you guys, I know we did you guys take a lot of, crap for, from family or friends that, ghost hunters and, the ridicule?
Yep, I still experience it at holiday gatherings sometimes on my dad's side of things. My mom's side is a little bit more open and everything. My mom has actually been one of my biggest supporters. She is actually one of the biggest supporters of our show as well. She watches almost every episode. I love my mom very much. So she definitely was a very much an open person. But when I go to my dad's side of the family for like Thanksgiving or Christmas or stuff like that, if I even mention like doing any kind of investigations of the show or anything like that, I hear a couple of comments from uncles and my dad. So I know that reaction.
When I go home, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the old rolling of the eyes.
Oh yeah, a lot of that stuff.
When I go home to my family during some of the holidays in Indiana, I don't bring it up at all. My mom and my stepdad are very hardcore Christians, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't really bring it up. I mean, I talk to the stepbrother once in a while and my stepsister. They have some stories that I've shared earlier on our live show on there. And it just differs. Mom's very supportive. I'm kind of wary of my mom watching the show. Maybe say blasphemy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of have an open mind in that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes you'll go to a friend's or a family member and they're like, we're going to have this get together, but we really don't want to talk ghosts the whole time. So that's like the invitation, but don't come if you're going to talk ghosts.
Yeah, very true.
So tell us about the covered bridge. Where is that located at?
Oh, that is in Summit County in Cuyahoga Valley Park System.
Oh,
okay.
Bigfoot territory.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about the bridge.
Oh, the bridge. The bridge
is their most visited location,
for sure.
And it was actually the very first location that Chris and I investigated together as a team.
Is that near Gretchen's Lock?
I'm not quite sure. It's near Hell Farm and Village.
Okay.
If you know where that is out there.
Yeah. Is there a legend as far as being haunted there on that bridge?
Oh, yes.
Tell us the story.
He's going to go ahead and grab that real quick because he always keeps that one. That's a very interesting story because that's one of the locations we've been to the most. So he's got it written down here so he can get all the details right for that.
It's like the paranormal log.
Yeah, oh man. We've got journals, notebook type journals for like magic and certain like things, for like the protections and like the blessings and stuff like that. Then I have journals for investigation stuff, He keeps everything documented and, all kinds of composition, notebooks.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that because I said this story many times. Back in the day before the bridge was built, John Gilson was his name, and his wife was coming home from a friend's house back in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very cold Ohio winter with the ice and the river was higher up back then. And he tried to cross the river with his horse and his wife in a buggy or wagon. It could have been a sled. The ice broke and the horse landed on top of John Gilson, killing him and the horse, but his wife survived. And to this day, people see like a headless or
like a headless man holding a lantern walking down the road. So it's almost like he's searching for potentially a wife and a child in the so they survived, but he and the horse died in there. So that's one of the big stories for that location, and there's a lot of research on that one. We checked that one a couple different times. And also, when they built one of the roads leading up to it, they plowed right through a Native American burial ground. And that's what they said was the initial reason that kind of started the activity there.
Mm-hmm. Have you share with excuse me. Okay, mark that time down, would you, for me? About 18 minutes, 23 seconds.
It wasn't wine that time. It was a cigarette.
Yeah. Okay. If you could share with us as far as any type of evidence that you've obtained during your investigations at the bridge.
The biggest piece of evidence we've gotten, we've had some, we don't really credit any kind of orb stuff we get too much. We did have one that popped up that we couldn't explain so much as like a dust particle or a bug or anything like that. But the one that we heard, and it's something we have to go back and enhance the audio so that somebody can hear it better, is we were out there and we heard a horse. And it was like, I think at that time it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. The bridle trails that were farther down the way, there's no chance anybody could have been going through there. Obviously it would have been completely illegal. And any kind of park ranger would have seen somebody bringing like a horse carriage or something out there.
Right.
And there's that area that's around there, there wasn't any Amish buggies or anything. And there's one road that passes by the backside, and that's one of the things we actually talked about in the video, is disproving some of the lantern talk, because you can see the light starting through the trees back there.
Mm-hmm.
But we would have noticed if a buggy passed any way they performed, because obviously they move pretty slow, and it would have gotten progressively louder. But when we heard, it stayed about the same, and it was just, it sounded like, almost like it was like 20 feet away, but then also it had like the echo as if it was like down in the woods or something. So we weren't exactly sure on that one, but that was definitely a big moment.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Now, as far as the lantern, do you think these could be, that people have been reporting, do you think that could be the forest orbs or the glowing balls of light that people report all the time seeing?
That's always a possibility. There's a lot. It's in a park area, so there's a lot of wooded areas around there and stuff. We haven't come into contact with it yet, so that's something that we can't speak too much on, because we've been out there a number of times, and we still haven't been able to see that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I never believed in, I don't want to say never believed, I was really skeptical on these forest lights and balls of light that people talked about until I saw it for myself. We were doing an investigation in Vermilion, Ohio, and it was brief, but there was like an area in the woods with a pond, and it literally was the size of a basketball, just floating silently, glowing from the inside, but it had just enough light where it lit up the tree, the leaves on the tree a little bit, and just as I was like, whoa, and I'm pointing, it just blinked out. So what they are, I have no idea what the hell they are, but
I love the people do like that.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, doing research on it since then, I found that our ancestors, people have been, especially in southern Ohio, and you get into the homestead people, they don't talk about paranormal much, but they do have a name for it. It's called will-o'-the-wisp, and country folk have been talking about it for years. So it is something that has been a phenomenon that people have seen, all over the place, worldwide. And it was really neat to see. But I'm just wondering if, people saying they're seeing a guy carrying a lantern, if these couldn't be will-o'-the-wisp that they interpret as a ghost.
Well, and that's definitely something that could be interpreted like a lantern or something. Now, Chris, you have one of your stories of a ball of light chasing you in a car.
Yes.
So go ahead and
Really?
tell that story. That he was on. He was out with the group. So yeah, you told the story.
Yeah, it was back in, actually, it's sort of like we're in Northeast Ohio. It's Northeast Indiana, up there by Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Pass over into Ohio, that side of Ohio. There's a little Amish community.
Yeah.
Dave has this thing about the Amish, so if you just say Amish,
I grew up around them.
They scare me.
Yeah, Dave cringes whenever we say Amish. So
Sorry, go ahead, Doug.
We travel about a mile down this road. Now, just because it doesn't take long to get into Indiana to Ohio over that way, we turn down what we call Amish Road. We didn't know the exact name of the road. You're supposed to park this car, but there's this big old farmhouse and this big old tree. You're supposed to park next to this tree, turn your car off, blink your light 3 times, then you see this lantern light, like someone's carrying a lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one night I was with my stepsister and a couple of her friends, and we tried this. Then all of a sudden, this light comes out of nowhere. This is Amish country. There is no light poles or whatnot anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's no electricity, no contamination. Then all of a sudden, it got closer and closer, and we freaked out. I was in the back seat, and we were driving away, and the thing followed us for a good mile, then stopped.
Wow.
No explanation whatsoever.
If it was a person on foot, obviously they wouldn't be able to keep up with a car or anything like that.
Right. And see, that leads me again to that these will-o'-the-wisp or these forest lights or orbs, there's intelligence behind them. I don't think it's just a natural, magnetic ley line type of explanation, because so many of the reports, there seems to be intelligence in these orbs or these forest orbs, that they move around trees, that, they can be attracted to you. And it sounds like this is what this may have been with you.
Right. And it followed us for a good while, then it stopped like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're all parked in like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Then later we tried to go back down there and it wouldn't do it again. Then here comes the Amish buggy and a guy trying to kick us out. So,
Yeah, that would have scared me. If I would have saw the Amish buggy, I would have dropped it in drive and punched it.
I would have been like, dude, you're on a horse.
Yeah, that was definitely the end of our night. We said, okay, we're done.
Well, on that note, I hear the music there, so we are coming up on break. And we will be back shortly on the Paranormal Road. Stay with us, folks.
The soil and the dust are trailing behind my boots. Blown by the wind, showed me a piece of my past. The soil and the dust is where we go. 6 feet under, whatever your uniform says. The smell of the dust is sticking onto my clothes. Burns my throat, sends shivers down my spine. The smell of the dust makes us just the same. What makes us different is just a bullet away. No pride but shame. No pride can bring the corpse from the graveyard. May the souls rest in peace up above. Some say we'll follow them down in the wind. Sooner or later we're gonna pay the bill. The taste of the dust is lingering in my mouth. Burns my throat, sends shivers down my spine. We taste the dust when we crow. 6 feet under, whatever your uniform says. No pride but shame. No pride can bring a corpse from the graveyard. May the souls rest in peace up above. Some say we'll follow them down in the wind. Sooner or later we're gonna pay the bill. We'll fly in the sky, blown like the dust, the soil and dust. Ooh, I thought over the smoking all this fuss around me, all this fuss around me, makes me feel alone. I can't bear all this fuss around me, all this fuss around me, makes me feel alone. I can't bear all this fuss around me. All this mess around me makes me feel alone. I can't bear all this fuss around me. All this mess around me.
If you've had a trip down the paranormal road and would like to share your experience, a haunting, a Bigfoot encounter, dogman, or anything that's just downright creepy, email us at paranormalroadpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's paranormalroadpodcast@gmail.com.
back from break, and we have Chris and Tyler on the line from Brunswick Area Paranormal Society. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about orbs and the forest lights and things, and that kind of brings into question different situations you've been in and you've learned from, which that's how we feel about things. We learn something on all of our investigations. Are there any things that you've noticed are like common threads that tie some of your investigations together? Like, oh, this happens on everyone, or this, we've seen this before, that sort of thing. Have you guys experienced stuff like that?
Oh, definitely so. A lot of the things we get right off the bat whenever we get to a location, and, you know, sometimes, you know, when we're doing audio, we're making sure we're checking our own breath. But something we always notice in overlapping things is just disembodied breaths, just things that don't make sense. They always tend to be over your shoulder or something like that. Chris, when he gets setting me up or something, he almost always seems to have somebody like checking in on him real quick just to see, you know. It seems to happen to him at the start of almost every investigation. And we always get some kind of shadow movement or entity. We've had a couple of big ones. One of our biggest pieces of evidence ever was a shadow figure moving in a location. And we always get something like that, whether it's just something, we do a lot of stuff outdoors, so with, you know, the woods and things like that, it's always something there. And your mind plays tricks on you for sure, but there's been times where Chris and I are just passing through each other, like just, you know, in the same area, and we both see the same thing. It's like, it's harder for the trick of the eye to be on both people.
Right. Now, do you guys rely more on EVP or ITC?
Well, we definitely rely more on the EVP.
Okay.
For sure.
Do you find, or do you, we've been doing this, well, since 2012, and we found that in communication, there seems to be rules on the other side, if that makes sense. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, very much so. There is rules.
Yeah, it's like they're not allowed to answer certain questions, or they're not, or just when you think you're going to get something, something will get blocked, as if like somebody somewhere is saying, no, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah, it does. Makes sense. It's like that Beetlejuice book.
Yeah.
There's rules.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I find it fascinating, and it's that kind of stuff, you know, the more, it's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, you know.
I think it kind of ties to, for me, on the mediumship side of it, because there are certain things when you are picking up, or you're, I hate to use the word reading because I don't consider myself a reading spirit, but along the line of reading, there are things that come up that could cause an interruption in your journey, your path through life. And I think that that may be true with spirit, that there's certain things they don't want you to know, or
because it could alter your own journey.
It could alter your journey or what you need to learn along your path in life.
On your own. Yeah.
I mean, and that happens to me. There's times that I'll pick up something that's like, you know what, I'm not going to share that with people because it could cause an interruption in their life or their lifestyle or whatever. And it's not harmful, but I'm not going to tell them. So to me, that's what I think. I think certain things spirits are not allowed to communicate because it could interrupt a certain path in life.
I definitely completely agree. That's why I study, you know, older religions, newer religions, all kinds of different practices, different things like that, trying to get some answers, because when you look at the fine lines and you see the overlapping things in those, you can start to see, okay, why there would be rules in this afterlife. Because we have rules we still have to abide by in our physical forms. So in our spiritual forms, I guess there would definitely still be maybe even a more laundry list of rules, because who knows? We don't even know the extent of the powers that we have and that kind of, you know, as we move on, all those different things.
Right.
And as people, our bodies and minds are amazing. And, you know, like with Chris, when he goes on investigations and he senses or feels things, I think a lot of people are sensitives, and I think some are even more mediums than what they think they are.
And on that's where we do a lot of residential. We don't do a whole lot of commercial. We've only done a few commercial things. We mainly focus on residential. But what we found is the people that call us that have the hauntings, one or more of the family members is a sensitive, and that makes so much sense.
Well, I think that the spirits know which kind of people to seek out. Like we were talking about
Absolutely.
one of our America, she has always something approach her. It's like things just want to talk to her because there's something about her energy, and she has that very kind soul. We talk about the innocence and everything like that. She's definitely got that kindness inside of her. So we can understand why things would want to talk to her.
Yeah, we were talking to Amy Boo about that on last week's Boo Report, and it does seem like for some reason, whether it's they see a light around somebody, it's a frequency, or if there's a spirit guy nudging them and say, hey, that dude over there knows you're around. What it is, I don't know, but they seem to know who to communicate with.
Exactly. They always seem like that. I've always felt that in certain hospitals being investigated. They always seem following, like, follow these guys.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to know what's here.
And we have in our team, we have a variety of people. I mean, we have several people on our team because you can't always get everybody together at the same time. So the more people you have to choose from, of course, the more apt you are to be able to set up an appointment. But we have a police officer, we've had nurses, we have a veterinarian, we have, at one point we had a minister. So we can kind of cover the gamut when you go out, and we try to match up the people to the investigation.
The skill sets, yeah.
And we did do one at a local hospital once, and we did have Shelley, who's a paramedic, and we had another guy who did like a crossover, and so it was interesting because you got communication that actually involved
the hospital.
And so those are kind of validating things to us, and that's what we try to do.
And on that note, have you guys taken the criticism? And when we started originally, that's just random. The PSP7, that's just random. You guys are getting random words. But when you get statements or words that is identical to the location that you are investigating, like, for example, when we did the Lorraine Lighthouse, very clearly we got lighthouse. I mean, that's not random.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And I mean, I speak simple terms when I use my voice recorder and get EVP, and they understand that because you don't know what time era they're from.
Right.
Well, he acknowledges you too. Chris has had on more than one occasion an EVP recording of something saying his name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's one. That's kind of creepy when they say
the very first time, this goes back to 2011, Randy's house, when just started this, the very first time I got my name, and actually it was EVP, it was full sentence. I turned on the recorder. I'll make a long story short real quick. Randy and I had a restaurant. He was managing and closing. I said, hey, can I go over to your house and do some EVPs? He rolled his eyes, gave me his keys, and said he had to stop and pick up a prescription. He said, make yourself at home. So I come into his house. I'm by myself. I sit in a breakfast nook. I'm all excited. I hit the record and let it go for a little bit, play it back, and it said, David, Randy, don't upset this home. I heard that. I flew out of his house.
I come home, he's in the backyard smoking a cigarette.
It just freaked the shit out of me. But what they were doing is, at that time period, almost every weekend you were having people come over to your house to hear EVPs. And I think what they were saying is, knock it off.
Yeah. It was like a dog and pony show here for a while when it all first started. People were coming over, and it was almost like that. It was like a carnival. We would be talking about stuff, and then you'd start hearing noises in the attic. You'd hear sounds in the walls. It's like, what in the hell is going on here? So, yeah, that's what started EVP Mediums. But
that's very interesting.
I want to bring up just, a little side note, a little bit of humor. You guys have had a brush with the law, right? I mean, I think you guys are like the first criminals that we've actually interviewed.
Well, it was one of those situations where Chris and I have been talking about for so long, and Molly Stark is one of those locations. It's definitely a hospital that has a lot of activity. It's been reported on. It's definitely one of those ones you see in different websites talking about paranormal or haunted places. You see videos on YouTube about it and everything like that. So we wanted to get out there. We knew the risks were definitely worse going out at night, so we went out during the day and everything, and it's just kind of a park area and stuff. And we got into the location. We got into a spot, and we got actually inside the building, and we're in there for a couple hours, and we went live from it. Unfortunately, as we were going live, somebody had commented that we didn't see the comment until later. Some guy from another state actually reported us to the park system out there. And, well, it's one of those things that, even though it's happened and unfortunately we'll never be able to go to that location, we got a small fine, and we had to make sure we keep our nose clear for 2 years and everything. And that's almost over now, which we don't have any plans of doing anything like that again. We want to get all commissions and get everything legit now because I'm a father of 2 children. We got a household to take care of and stuff. So It's not one of those things that we were expecting to happen. But unfortunately, the Rangers were pretty fun about it. They definitely messed with me and everything. So I said a couple of jokes while we were waiting for the Ranger pool. The Ranger did pull up and was waiting out there. And I made a couple of jokes at his expense. And when I pulled up and we talked to the one Ranger to sign our things to get, our system for court, the one was like, "Hey, my buddy's down there if you want to go talk to him and everything and tell him some of your jokes." And I laughed and just like, "No, I'm good." It was all in good fun. I was just nervous and just trying to keep the thing going. So, but that was the small thing that we ran into on the legal front.
Yeah, even the judge at the Portland, he's like, when he called up Tyler's name first, he's like, "Wait a minute, there's usually more of you." But I raised my hand. "Yeah, that's me." And he was joking about, "Is it haunted and stuff?" It's like, possibly.
And then he told us we never find any ghosts or anything like that. And we're like, well, we're going to go to the opposite end,
Well, there's for our listeners who are thinking about doing ghost investigations, there is that risk. So please, if you're going to a cemetery at night or go orphanage or haunted hospital, make certain you get you dot your I's, cross your T's, and get permission.
Don't do what these guys did.
Yeah.
Well, when we actually released the video and when we released the audio, because when we were still doing a podcast and we talked out there, we put up a thing right in the beginning and said, don't do this, guys.
Yeah.
We don't recommend it. When we tell that on all of our live streams and we talk about it, if it gets brought up at all, we always tell people, don't do it. Get your permission and stuff, because it was a scary moment to have to be dragged in the court just because you were doing a paranormal investigation.
Right.
And then to have if you get in trouble in this county into the next 2 years, you're going to spend some time in jail. And that was a terrifying thing.
That is.
I don't really want to spend time in jail. No.
Just remember that if the judge ever calls you and says he's got paranormal activity, say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore."
Yes, I think that's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. Sorry for your luck that they're slinging your wife around the house, but maybe in a couple years we'll come and help you.
I have to be honest with you though. If I was younger, man, I would have done the same thing. I would have said, "Let's hop this fence. Let's climb in there."
And I can't hop a fence unless I've got my life alert.
It was definitely when we were getting out of there. It was tough. We had to find a quick way out because we couldn't go out the one way we started, and it was very interesting. I was a little bit younger at the time. I'm in my 20s, my late 20s, and it's just it was a couple years ago that we did this. And, I still, I almost busted my ankle, and Chris, man, he almost got caught on the fence because it has a barbed wire top.
I'm 40 years old, jumping off a high.
Oh, man. And see, that's what people don't realize. There's dangers to that. I mean, so, if you're going to do, especially in abandoned buildings and locations, there could be open elevator shafts, so there is a huge amount of risk when you're doing paranormal investigations in commercial buildings, properties, outside.
There is in residential, too. Look at how many places we've gone in that we go in the basement and they've got these tiny little half-broken steps. And so it's crazy.
I'm sorry.
I have a couple things to add, too. When you're doing these abandoned locations and stuff, another thing that people don't take into account is homeless or people who might be stowing away and things like that. And I've had on the east side of Cleveland a gun pulled on me on location because I was just out there with some urban exploration, just checking out some old buildings and stuff. and there was a group of homeless in there, and they definitely did not want anybody around and stuff.
Wow.
And then we were in the building, some of the things you can breathe in. Like when we were going through Molly Stark, we realized we should have had a mask on to keep us away from the things in there, because all the dust, all the particles, all the substandard, stuff that's probably all out of code,
Yeah, when we did the Mission of Mercy, which is an abandoned hospital in Lorain, Ohio, we literally I called the investigation off early. I'm like, wrap this up. Let's do the crossover. When my inside of my nose is burning and my eyes are burning, all from black mold, it's time to leave. So there is a lot of danger.
Yeah, and Shelley, our team member that's a cop, she had her gun. She's like, you don't know who's living in these places. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
But that could be. Time, someone told me that it was enough to be like, oh yeah, I need to be careful about these locations and the times and places I'm going to.
Right. I'm more afraid of the living than I am the dead.
By far. Exactly.
Yep. So we're going to take another break, and when we return, I'm going to get on to a subject that's my personal favorite, and I can see Randy over there now rolling his eyes.
The eye roll.
Yep. We're going to be talking about cryptids. So stay with us, folks, and we will be back on the Paranormal Road.
Good evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon or whatever, it doesn't matter. We are Graveyard Tales. Now, if you like ghost stories, hauntings, cryptid encounters, and the weird history behind them, then you should join us in the graveyard.
You can find us on any of your favorite podcast providers. Check out our website at graveyardpodcast.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at GRV. Just go search Graveyard Tales.
That would be easier. Now, we hope to see you in the graveyard.
And you've just turned back on the Paranormal Road, and we are on the line with Brunswick Area Paranormal Society with Chris and Tyler. Hey, we were talking before break about, what you're learning, and we talked so much about everything, but I really want to get into now, we talked about those orbs, those spirit orbs or balls of light. Now, me being interested in the cryptids, there have been a lot of parallels with these balls of light just prior to or after a Bigfoot sighting. What are your guys' thoughts on Bigfoot?
Well, I definitely, I think that it's one of those things, the world, there's so much to explore, to immediately dismiss and say it's not out there. I would not agree with something like that, but I've gone on Bigfoot searches myself and stuff. And, relation to those lights and everything, Bigfoot, when I read so many of these stories, he's interpreted as almost like a protector of the forest as well. Mm-hmm. He seems to look over, from some of the stories I've heard, he's actually like pulled animals or people out of forest fires and things of that nature. So it seems like that these forests or, these little lists things, they could definitely be in relation or something that like works or coincides with Bigfoot,
Now, in your investigations, I noticed you guys do a lot of outdoor investigations. Have you heard, thinking back on it, have you heard any tree knocks or anything that screams or strange animal sounds that you couldn't identify? I mean, pretty much most all of us would be able to identify a fox or a coyote or even a rabbit scream, when that they do scream when they get murdered. But have you heard anything out of the ordinary that you thought may not be paranormal but may be physical but of unknown origin?
Well, my biggest Bigfoot investigation, I hiked 15 miles in the Mogador Reservoir, which is it's a little bit east of the Acton Canton area, and I definitely had something thrown at me at one point, and it could have just, there was fishermen out there and stuff like that too, so it could have been something like that. And then I heard a couple of knocks, and I saw a couple of things that people attribute to possibly being like the Bigfoot building, like lean-tos or like nests or nooks or something like that. And then Chris and I, when we were on one of our Everett Road covered bridge investigations, something walked out of the woods, and at first it seemed like it was like a little bit bent down, almost it was like it was like on a kneeling down or something, and it stood up, and we saw the eyes at a level that seemed taller than both of us. And that was our two experiences with anything Bigfoot related, or something of that nature.
You know what's strange about that? Before we got you guys on the line earlier today, we were looking at your video from the covered bridge, and you guys were talking about animal noises and stuff. And I looked at Dave and I said, "Oh, it's a Bigfoot. They just don't know it yet."
It could be. I mean, that area could definitely support it. The Mogador Reservation. If you ever, anybody can check this out. Just Mogador Reservation in Ohio. You can look at it from an aerial view and see it's a huge water source with tons of trees and wooded areas, miles and miles, and acres and acres and acres, hundreds of acres of trees and wooded areas. And it also leads right into other parks and areas. So the trails that could keep it, I mean, it's just...
I got news for you. There's a lot of reported Bigfoot activity in that area.
Yeah, and if you ever wanted to just question something like that, Amy Boo, who does our Boo Report, she does all of Ohio, Pennsylvania area research on Bigfoot, and she has, what's her email? It's Bigfoot Amy Boo or something at Gmail, I think.
Yeah.
You can send her emails and she'll tell you if there's been sightings there, when they were, what they found, that sort of stuff. She's really cool. She loves talking about it too. So if you guys ever are doing any strange investigating outside and you hear something, Amy's your person.
Or if you come across something on one of your investigations, get a hold of us and we'll get Amy on the line for you. And
we'll do an interview with you guys and Amy.
Well, definitely. Next time I get something like that, we'll pass it along to you guys so we can definitely link up on that. Yeah, most definitely.
But something thrown at you, that's what they're known to do when they want you to leave. They throw rocks, pebbles, or sticks.
One of those things that the velocity it was thrown at me, it whipped past me like a baseball. I played baseball as a kid and a teenager and everything, and it felt like a rock or something that was around the baseball side. It whipped past me and it cracked against a tree, I would say probably 10, 15 feet to the, behind me off to the left a little bit. And I mean, I heard it. I heard the rock. I heard it hit the ground and everything. I didn't go pick it up because at that point I started making my way the other way around, because as much as I would love to get a visual and everything, I'm always trying to keep my distance too, because if, a creature like that does exist, yes, it could be very peaceful, it could be very nice, but any creature, you test their territory, you make them feel threatened or scared, they're going to retaliate. So I still kept my distance and was trying to keep a good eye on that area I thought it came from.
I'm with you. I would have been bing, 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 ricochet, rabbit, gone. I'd have been out of there. Am I dating myself?
I can give you past it for a little bit because it was off to the left of the trail that I was, on at the time, and I knew there was an escape route to my right, and I could have gone towards the water at least, and then tried to make a break for it. And there were some boats on the water by the time of the morning, fishermen and stuff out there, so I could have definitely done something like that. But also, too, you never know how something fast it can move and everything, and who knows,
Yeah.
There's so many lore to them. I mean, there's lore that they time travel and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah, we've heard a lot of different stories, and, especially knowing Amy, we actually went on a weekend to the Stanford House in Helltown, and we stayed there with Amy and a bunch of other friends of hers that are Bigfooters, and the stories and something
made my hair raise on my arms, man. They walked down
the familiar with the Helltown area.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
Yeah, and I tell you, he walked us down these railroad tracks and pointed to where he had his experience, and it just made my hair stand up. It was scary as hell.
Yeah, and just listening to all the different people's stories and stuff, it's like, oh man, this stuff's scary as shit.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, yeah, it's real. What are your thoughts on the dog man?
Well, dogman, I mean, that goes back to, in the United States, that goes back to Native American lore and things that being reported, not necessarily the skinwalkers or something of that nature, but there are just dog men who have made pacts with certain deities or some kind of entity and have that transformation. One of my favorite stories of a dog man is two young men who came across a tent or like a cabin of some sort, and there were two wolf pelts in it. And those wolf pelts granted them the ability to change into wolves. And they got so obsessed with being of wolf flesh and everything, they eventually lost their humanity and only just became wolves.
Yeah, I think that's isn't that in German folklore?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
in or something like that.
Yeah, and in Europe, I mean, they've known them for years. They called them werewolves, and I'm like, yeah, right. But now I'm not so sure. I mean, after we had a judge on our show and looking at all the evidence, I would say, again, there's too many people reporting these things, and what they are is the big question. Are they cryptid? Are they just an animal, undiscovered, or are they something more? Are they humans that actually turn into an animal? Which, the things we've seen and experienced, you have to ask yourself, just like the judge, did himself when he saw this thing, when we experienced our investigation at Bang Bang in Elyria. That was so profound. It was like something out of Hollywood movie. And when we were done with that investigation, if ghosts are real, if what we just experienced is real, what the hell else is real? It's an eye opener.
It is. And we think about the sea a lot and what could potentially exist in the sea.
Oh yeah. Now the other thing too, I think you've expressed that you have a huge interest in UFOs. Did you have a sighting?
Oh yeah, I've had a couple of them. One thing I did is I started to research what kind of things to look out for to identify as what we know is in the sky. Satellites, planets,
right.
Different things like that. And then I started to look into the files of things that have been reported. So stuff from the government, stuff from reports from different various media sources or different Reddit kind of a good place sometimes. You can find some decent information there, but unfortunately it gets a little bit bogged down with a lot of garbage.
Right.
So just going through a lot of some stuff. And then I eventually started to look for the type of lights. And I've seen a couple of different ones, something referred to as like an Eggman kind of thing, which is like a yellow orb that moves in certain patterns and intends to have very linear patterns and stuff. I've seen some lights that it just seemed like it twists and moves in a way that was completely unnatural. There'd be no flight plan of a plane, no flight plan of any kind of helicopters. I mean, if they had that kind of maneuverability, I'd be very impressed. And in the new age, you gotta look out for droids and drones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because the drones, they definitely can be mistaken for something. But there's too many reports in that area and too many of these things that aren't identifiable as anything we know. But I do like to look to the sky. I'm actually in the process of getting a telescope system with my camera and everything so I can start doing some photography of the sky and get some better pictures of things when I'm watching.
Oh, that'd be cool. What are your thoughts on alien abduction?
That's definitely something that I think both of us have a strong interest in knowing what could be, the reasons for them and everything. I believe in it. There'd be no reason for any kind of species that did live on this planet if they were that intelligent. And I mean, we see it in people of extreme intelligence. They tend to not have the same kind of reserves when it comes to what they need to do for their research. So if you're an advanced alien species and you want to just, all right, well, I need to see what these people are like. You're going to suck up the animals, you're going to suck up the people and everything. And I definitely think there's a lot of truth to that. As for how it goes about, I've not seen anything of an alien abduction where I've actually seen something like, oh wow, that makes me believe. But the stories are incredible, and some of these people who can recall details and overlapping details of the stories.
And again, it's strange. It's kind of like it's the same thing on the Bigfoot or the dog man. It's there's some as much as I'm open minded, and I guess someone once said our good friend Nance Warren from Buckeye Bigfoot. it goes down to a point of what you're willing to accept. Not that you're discrediting somebody, but it's this, there are certain stories that, I'm just not willing to go that far. And, there are some, alien abduction stories that all I can do is with my inside voice is say, what were you smoking? But, yeah. But there are some that are just so creditable. Again, it's like you ask yourself, what the hell's going on?
Well, some of the stories, it's like you look at the person, you look at the situation, and what does this person have to lose? What do they have to, like, what, some people, it's like you can definitely see they have something to gain from it. They definitely have something that they could definitely use the story to spin in something else. Some people, have fake
profit from, or
yeah, but some people, when you're looking at, say, a woman of 70 or 80 who lives at home, what why would she need to make a story like that up? And not to discredit people of the younger age or anything like that, but why would somebody of that nature, that's where you hear some of these stories, and especially if you go back to the old days of like Art Bell and stuff, there's so many of these stories. It's like, what does that person have, that to gain from this or to lose from it,
Good point. Just like, our judge, we had a bench sitting judge.
He's still
on the bench to tell us about his dogman sighting in Bucyrus, Ohio. He was chased. It was one of the most freaking scariest stories that I can imagine. And he had everything to lose, but he's at a point in his life where people need to know about these things. So again, like you said, you ask, what do you have to gain? Well, what do people? Some of these people have to lose. Park rangers coming out talking about things, or police officers. You can't just dismiss all paranormal claims as people looking for attention or people who have an overactive imagination.
Oh, exactly. Look at the people on their deathbeds who admitted to their families that they had a story or something that's been keeping from them, or a father admitting to his son, like, oh yeah, that night you saw that thing and I told you it was nothing. I saw it too.
Right.
It's like, what about those kind of situations where it's like, why would somebody waste their final moments to tell somebody like that if they didn't 100% believe in what they saw? And you hear stories like that. It's like, I find that almost impossible to believe, or not to believe,
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky sometimes when you think about all the things that people hold inside, and that's why we have this podcast, and that's why you guys have your podcast. And speaking of the podcast, when did you guys start your podcast? Was that like at the same time you started your investigation team, or was it something that came along after?
No, it was actually it was around the time where I joined with it. I'd already done some podcast stuff before that. I had a podcast that none of the episodes are up anymore, but it's called Ambiguous Legion, where we talk about everything. We talk about the cryptids, the paranormal. We talk about music related to crazy stuff. We talk about conspiracy. We just had a whole big thing with the paranormal Twilight stuff. Mm-hmm. And then when I met Chris brought me into the team. We started doing some stuff, and I'm like, hey man, why don't we just start talking about our investigations and some of the things we enjoy in podcasts? Mm-hmm. We started off, and unfortunately, there's some circumstances where we had to step away from it a while, and now we're getting back to doing the shows and stuff. And that's where the name came from for the show now. Our show now is called By the Burial Ground, and we do it by the burial ground from the crypt because we do it from our crypt. But we actually live right next to a graveyard. That's why we call it By the Burial Ground.
You do know that the majority of dogman sightings happen in graveyards. Just want you to know that.
We have had we have a lot of animal traffic. We have deer in our backyard every single day. Usually, if you go out early in the morning or late at night, you're always going to see deer. There's deer trails. There's 50 million deer trails behind ours, and we have a whole wooded area.
And that's
right next to it.
That's like the main course meal.
Letter glowing eyes at the 3 to 4 foot height in the woods behind the graveyard. We actually have two of my old roommates reported it. Our friend Erica reported it. Chris has seen it, and I've seen it. And, it's all those things that it's happened at different times, too. And it's always around that 3 to 4 height range. So it's either some kind of, shorter humanoid or something down on the ground and a big, dire wolf-sized creature.
Well, we know that deer eyeshine is greenish. Dogman, it seems to be very, very common. 99.9% of witnesses with dogman describe an amber amber eye shine.
The orange or like a reddish glow.
Yeah.
Depending on how your light's hitting and everything. That's you automatically see something like that, and because of everybody always attributing red eyes to things, your mind automatically shoots the red sometimes. But it could have definitely been an amber glow. Unfortunately, we haven't ever gotten a clear picture or anything of it.
Yeah, but that reminds me of the Everett Road Truckers Bridge, because it was about that color too.
Yeah. And that one was it stood up. It could have been a dog head. It could have been a Bigfoot.
Yeah, be careful out there, especially at night.
And watch out there when you're looking out your back window and you see those glowing eyes, that you don't see some glowing eyes at 8 foot tall, and then all of a sudden the lower ones disappear.
Yeah, run.
When something physical starts moving out there like that, that's when we start to definitely pick up our equipment. We still keep out there, but if it gets to the point where the one time with the red eyes and the standing up, as soon as it stood up, we went back to the car and left.
Yeah, there's a time when you call it quits. But as far as
even if it could be an animal, it could be something that could hurt us.
Right. On your investigations, have you come across anything that you figured or experienced that was hostile or that was malevolent in nature?
We investigated something we refer to as the Malik House. It was a house in Akron, right? Yes. With another team that we've worked with a couple different times, Paranormal Ben, it's led by Amanda and Jason. They're a wonderful group out of the Ohio area as well. And we investigated this house. It was one of the few residentials we've ever done, but it was a house that wasn't being rented, or I think it was being renovated at the time, being sold off or something. So we had free range of the base of the floors and stuff. And we had a couple things attack investigator Jason while we were in there, and he had to actually leave pretty quick into our investigation. He's very sensitive, so it's something that he gets a lot of stuff that attracts to him. But we had a lot of different things, and Chris had a crawler shadow figure approach him in the attic. Unfortunately, he was just going up there and hadn't had his equipment up there yet, or a camera up there yet to get a picture. But he saw it as soon as he was going up, and it literally darted towards it was one of those hole in the ceiling attics. You gotta barely you can barely fit in.
Right. Right.
And he jumped. I was right at the bottom of the stairs, and I was going to be following him up, and he jumped down and booked it. So
I was done at that point. I was very done.
So that was one of the few places where we've experienced hostility.
Yeah, that
hostility. Yeah, true hostility. Yeah.
If that attic doesn't have stairs to go up and it's a crawl hole, no. I'm not even.
It's so limited. You have one way to get out, and it's such a small stairway to get out.
Exactly. What I don't like is you have to poke your head up to get in there, and Lord knows what could hit you in the head before you make it, or decapitate you before you can get up in there. So no, it's got to have stairs.
Being old, I just think about breaking my hip, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm breaking a hip, so.
Well, Chris was out of that hole in 1.5 seconds, man. I was up, he was pulling himself up, and then boom, he was right next to me.
It's it's on the YouTube channel, the Malik House Investigation. You'll see me how quick I got down from that.
I have to check that out.
We'll have to look at it. We'll laugh a little bit, but not where anyone can hear us.
Well, it was hilarious. I was laughing at him for sure.
Yeah, there's some memorable moments when you're out there out in the field. But before we leave tonight, can you tell our guests, our listeners, how that they can find you and more about getting in touch with you?
Of course. The best way, the most interactive way to check out us is to go to Facebook. A lot of people have that. And go to Brunswick Area Paranormal Society on Facebook. We're pretty easy to find on there. If you can't find that, you can find Chris Stanton directly. Chris Stanton on Facebook. He can definitely you can find the page through there. On YouTube, it's the same thing. You can do the Brunswick Area Paranormal Society, or you can look it up by the show name By the Burial Ground. And I found that By the Burial Ground is the easiest way to find it on YouTube. We're usually one of the top 5 to 10 results. You can find one of our videos there. And we do a lot of our live shows on the Facebook and the YouTube right now. That's the two platforms we're trying to stick to. With the increase of activity of people being on the internet, we've had to go sometimes just to Facebook, so that is definitely the best place to check us out right now. But as we get going a little bit farther, for a couple of weeks we've been doing the new show and definitely trying to make more steps to get that all cleared up. But those are the best places to find us.
Fantastic.
Great.
Well, guys, definitely this summer, if you're not doing much, bring the family out to the campground. We'll definitely have to hook up and sit around the fire, tell some ghost stories, and who knows, maybe we could do a bonus episode in between our season.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I would love to come out and hang with you.
That'd be awesome.
Yep, sounds great, man.
Well, you know how to keep in touch with us, and we definitely will do that, and we can share stories along the way.
Oh, yeah, we actually will have it fun.
Yep, thanks for being on, guys.
Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you soon.
Well, that just about wraps up this show and season 2. Again, we'd like to thank all of you for listening. And we'd like to thank the contributors to Paranormal Road in one form or another, be it voiceovers or narration. Start off with Nance Warren from Buckeye Bigfoot.
And Adam Ballinger from the Graveyard Tales podcast.
Joe Woolen, our audio intro.
Also, we really want to put out a good word for our friends at It's Your Journey.
Amy Boo with the Boo Report.
And William Haddix with our Haddix Report.
So, folks, it's been an awesome season. Stay tuned and follow us on Facebook, and we will be hopefully releasing some bonus episodes throughout the course of the summer. Until then, everyone, stay safe.
And also think very highly of your loved ones throughout all of this virus, and keep your head up and look forward.